We are going down. It is over. A captain with 38 years of flying told 187 people on his plane they were going to die. Then a forgotten woman no one had ever seen before took over and flew it. Seconds later, F-22 pilots heard 3 words, call sign Phoenix. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. It was the kind of day that made flying feel easy. Blue sky everywhere. Not a single cloud. The sun was warm and bright over Las Vegas. The wind was calm, only 5 knots, which is almost nothing. You could see for miles and miles in every direction. It was, by every measure, a perfect Friday afternoon. Southwest Flight 2891 was sitting on the runway at McCarran International Airport, ready to go. Its destination, Seattle. A simple trip. 2.5 hours in the air. Nothing special. Just another Friday flight carrying people home for the weekend. The airplane was a Boeing 737-800. Only 5 years old. It had just come back from a full maintenance check 2 weeks before this flight. Every single system had been tested. Every part had been looked at. The engineers said it was in perfect shape. And there was no reason to think they were wrong. 187 passengers had boarded that afternoon. Some were businesspeople going back to their offices on Monday. Some were families heading home after a weekend in Vegas. Some were young couples, old friends, college students. Regular people living regular lives. Nobody on that plane thought today was going to be anything other than ordinary. And at the front of the plane, in the cockpit, sat 2 of the most experienced pilots in the country. Captain Thomas Reed was 58 years old. He had been flying for 38 years. 38 years. That is longer than most people have worked any job in their entire life. He had logged 21,000 flight hours, meaning he had spent 21,000 hours actually flying airplanes in the sky. He had flown this exact route, Las Vegas to Seattle, so many times that he could have done it with his eyes closed. He was calm. He was quiet. He was very, very good at his job. And he was only 3 months away from retirement. This was going to be one of his last flights. He wanted it to be perfect. Sitting next to him was First Officer Jennifer Park. She was younger than Reed, only 42, but she was no beginner. Before she became a commercial pilot, she had been a Navy pilot. She had 9,500 flight hours. She was sharp. She was fast. She knew what to do in a crisis. At exactly 2:34 in the afternoon, Captain Reed pushed the throttle forward and Southwest Flight 2891 lifted off the runway. The takeoff was smooth. Perfect, even. Jennifer called out the numbers as they climbed into the sky, positive rate, gear up, 1,000 feet. Everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be. For 51 minutes, the plane flew smoothly at 34,000 feet, 6 miles above the ground. Passengers read books. Some watched movies on their phones. Kids fell asleep. Flight attendants walked up and down the aisle collecting trash. The cockpit was quiet. Reed sipped his coffee. Park checked the instruments. Everything was calm. But here is the thing about flying. Here is the thing that most people don't think about when they sit down in their seat and put on their seatbelt. Sometimes, the difference between a normal flight and the worst day of your life is something so small you cannot see it. A tiny crack in a piece of metal. A crack so small that even the people whose job it is to find these cracks missed it. That metal has been bending back and forth, bending and unbending, over and over, for 40,000 flight hours. And it has been waiting. Waiting for the one moment when the bending is too much. When the crack becomes a break. When the break becomes something much, much bigger. At 34,000 feet, over the wilderness of Oregon, 420 miles from the nearest big airport, that moment came. Before we talk about what happened next, we need to go back. We need to talk about a woman. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She was 58 years old. She was sitting in seat 14C, that is the middle seat in row 14, in the economy section of the plane. The cheapest seat. The kind of seat nobody picks on purpose. If you had looked at her, you would not have thought anything special. She was a quiet woman. Short silver-gray hair. A face that looked like it had seen a lot of hard days, deep lines around her eyes, skin that had been in the sun too much, hands that were rough and scarred. She was wearing faded jeans, old work boots, and a plain black t-shirt. She looked like someone who worked with her hands for a living. Someone who built things, or fixed things, or carried heavy things. The man in the seat next to her, seat 14B, was a businessman typing on his laptop. He did not look at her once. The teenager in seat 14A had headphones in and was staring at her phone. She did not notice Sarah either. Nobody on that plane knew who Sarah Mitchell was. To the gate agent who checked her ticket, she was just another passenger. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. That was it. No special status. No frequent flyer points. No one waiting for her at the other end, or at least, that is what it looked like. To the flight attendants, she was the quiet older woman who said, "Thank you," when they walked by, and who asked for only water. Nothing else. She did not eat. She did not talk to anyone. She just sat there, looking out the window at the sky. But if you had looked very closely at her hands, really closely, you might have noticed something strange. The scars on her hands were not normal scars. They were burned scars. The kind you get from fire. From jet fuel. From something very hot and very dangerous. And there were other marks too, faint lines on her wrists and shoulders that looked like they came from a parachute harness. The kind of harness a pilot wears when they are going to have to jump out of a plane. And this is a big if you could somehow look at old Air Force records from 32 years ago, records that have been locked away and hidden, you would find a name that was once very, very famous. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell. Call sign, Phoenix. Chief Test Pilot. Edwards Air Force Base. 1975 to 1992. The first woman to ever be a test pilot in the United States Air Force. To become a test pilot is one of the hardest things in the world. Test pilots do not fly normal planes on normal routes. They fly brand new airplanes that have never flown before, and they push them to see how far they can go before they break. They fly planes that are broken on purpose, to see what happens. They fly planes with missing parts, damaged parts, parts that are not working right. If something goes wrong, there is no backup plan. There is no one who has done this before to tell them what to do. They are the first. And sometimes, the first person to do something dangerous is also the last person to try. Sarah Mitchell had to fight for 8 years just to get into the test pilot program. 8 years. Every single man in the program told her she could not do it. They said women were not strong enough. They said women could not handle the stress. They said women would crack under pressure, get scared, make mistakes. They said it over and over, in meetings, in hallways, in the mess hall. Sarah did not crack. She did not get scared. She did not make mistakes. She graduated at the top of her class. For 18 years after that, Sarah flew airplanes that nobody else would touch. Planes with engines that were cut off on purpose. Planes with hydraulics that were broken. Planes that were damaged in ways that should have made them fall out of the sky. She flew them, and she brought them back down. Safe. Every single time. Her call sign, Phoenix, came from one particular test flight. It was early in her career. She was flying an experimental fighter jet, high up in the sky, when all 3 of the plane's hydraulic systems failed at the same time. The hydraulic system is what makes the plane's wings and tail move. Without it, you cannot steer. You cannot go up or down. The plane is, for all practical purposes, a very expensive piece of metal falling through the air. The book said, eject. Jump out. The plane is done. There is nothing you can do. Phoenix did not eject. Instead, she did something that no one had ever done before. She used the engines themselves to steer. By making one engine go faster and the other go slower, pushing one side of the plane and pulling the other, she created movement. She turned the plane. She brought it down. 67 miles away, at a small airstrip in the desert, she landed that dead airplane. 0 damage. A perfect landing. The male pilots who had been saying for years that she could not hack it. They watched from the ground as she climbed out of that cockpit. Alive. Smiling. They did not say a word. From that day on, everyone called her Phoenix. The woman who comes back from the dead. The woman who rises from fire. But all of that was a long time ago. Because something happened in 1992 that changed everything. In 1992, Sarah Mitchell was testing a classified airplane. The name of the airplane was Wraith. It was a stealth fighter, a plane designed to be invisible to radar. It was one of the most secret airplanes in the world, and Sarah was one of only a handful of pilots allowed to fly it. But there was a problem with the Wraith. And the problem was not small. The hydraulic system, the same kind of system that Sarah had dealt with before, had a flaw. The engineers who built it knew about the flaw. They had found it months before. They had written reports about it. They had told their bosses, this airplane is not safe to fly until you fix this. But the company that built the Wraith had a contract worth $12 billion with the Air Force. $12 billion. That is a number so big it is hard to even think about. And the senior officers in the Air Force, the men at the very top, did not want to stop the program. They did not want to delay. They did not want to lose that contract. So they looked at the engineers' reports and they said, fly it anyway. And Sarah, who did not know the full truth about the hydraulic problem, because it was classified, because she was not told, climbed into the Wraith and flew it. During the test flight, she pushed the plane hard, the way test pilots are supposed to. She pulled high G turns so tight that the force of gravity feels like it is 2 or 3 times heavier than normal. And during one of those turns, the hydraulic system broke. Not a little. Not a crack. It broke completely. The Wraith became uncontrollable in an instant. Sarah did what she was trained to do, she ejected. She jumped out of the plane and opened her parachute and floated down to the ground, alive. But the Wraith did not crash where it was supposed to crash, out in the empty desert, where there was nothing and no one. Instead, it glided. It spiraled through the air, with no pilot inside, and it drifted, slowly, terribly, toward a place where people were watching the test flight from the ground. A viewing area. VIP seats. There were government officials there. Important people. The Wraith hit that area. 2 people died. A senator's aide. The wife of a big company executive. And now the Air Force needed someone to blame. They chose Sarah. The official report said, pilot error. The pilot violated test rules. The pilot flew recklessly. The pilot made emotional decisions, the kind of emotional decisions that are typical of female pilots who are under stress. They said she caused the crash. They said it was her fault. The truth, that the hydraulic system was broken and the officers knew it was broken and flew it anyway, that truth was classified. Secret. Locked away. Sarah tried to fight it. She tried to tell people what really happened. She tried to say, the airplane was defective. It was not my fault. They knew. They hid it. They threatened her with a court-martial. They said, if you say one more word about this, we will put you in military prison. And then they did something even crueler. They used the fact that she was a woman against her. This is what happens, they said, when you put women in experimental aircraft. They cannot handle the pressure. Mitchell cracked under stress. This proves that women do not belong in test programs. One statement. One lie. And it wiped out 18 years of everything Sarah had done. She was dishonorably discharged. That means she was kicked out of the Air Force in the worst possible way, the way that follows you for the rest of your life. Her pension was taken away. All of her medals and commendations, the awards she had earned over 18 years of flying the most dangerous planes in the world, were stripped from her. Her name was removed from the Test Pilot Hall of Fame. It was as if she had never existed. Her husband left her. He said he could not handle being married to someone the world called a disgrace. Her daughter, Emily, who was only 19 at the time, stopped speaking to her. Emily had believed what the Air Force said. She was young. She did not know the truth. She was ashamed and confused and hurt, and she did not talk to her mother again. Sarah Mitchell became a ghost. For 32 years, Sarah Mitchell lived a life that almost no one knew about. She did not fly. She did not go near airports. She did not talk about the Air Force or test pilots or anything that had to do with the sky. It hurt too much. She worked jobs that paid very little money and asked very few questions. Construction work. Loading cargo at warehouses. Cleaning buildings at night. The kind of work where nobody cares about your past. Nobody asks where you came from. You just show up, do the job, and go home. She lived alone. A small apartment. No pictures on the walls. No TV. No computer. She kept to herself. She did not make friends, or if she did not let them get close enough to ask real questions. Some nights, when it was very quiet and very dark, Sarah would sit by her window and look up at the sky. And she would think about what it felt like to fly. The way the clouds looked from above. The way the horizon curved. The way an airplane felt when you pushed it to its limit and it pushed back, and for a moment, you and the machine were one thing, moving together through the air. She thought about it. But she did not do it. Because that life was over. Or so she believed. Then, in January of this year, something arrived in her mailbox. An envelope. A real envelope, made of paper, with a stamp on it. Sarah did not get much mail. She opened it carefully. Inside was a wedding invitation. And a letter. The wedding invitation was from Emily. Her daughter. Emily was getting married, again. Her first husband had died 2 years before, and she had met someone new, someone kind, and they were going to get married in Seattle on a Saturday in February. And the letter, handwritten, in Emily's voice, said this. Mom, I know we have not talked in 15 years. I know you think I hate you. I do not hate you. I was young when all of that happened, and I believed what they said about you. But something changed. Last year, I was cleaning out some old boxes in my house, and I found some of your old test reports, reports you must have kept before they took everything from you. I read them. And I read between the lines. And I realized, you were right. They lied. They used you as a scapegoat. They covered up the truth because it was easier than admitting what they did. I am so sorry I did not believe you. I am sorry I let you go. I am getting married this Saturday, and I would like you to be there. If you want to come. No pressure. I love you. M. Sarah read the letter 3 times. Then she sat down on her kitchen floor and did not move for a very long time. For 3 weeks, the invitation sat on her table. She looked at it every day. She picked it up. She put it down. She almost threw it in the trash more than once. But she did not throw it away. On the Tuesday before the wedding, she went online and bought a ticket. The cheapest ticket she could find. Las Vegas to Seattle. Southwest Airlines. Seat 14C. A middle seat in economy. It cost her almost all the money she had saved in 2 months of work. She did not know if Emily would be happy to see her. She did not know if this would be a good day or the worst day of her life. She only knew that she had to try. She did not know that she was about to fly again. 51 minutes. That is how long the flight had been in the air when everything went wrong. Captain Reed was sitting in his seat, relaxed, thinking about the descent into Seattle. Park was watching the instruments. The sky outside was still blue. The air was still smooth. Nothing had changed. And then Park looked at one of the gauges on the dashboard and said, "Captain, hydraulic pressure on System A is dropping." Reed looked. She was right. The pressure was going down, slowly, but steadily. "Run the checklist," he said, calm as always. "It is probably just a pump. A pump can break on its own. It happens. There are other pumps. Other systems. You fix it and you keep flying. It is a problem, but it is not a big problem." Park started going through the checklist, the list of steps you follow when something goes wrong, step by step, in order. But she had barely started when she looked up again. System B pressure is dropping too. And System C. Reed's face changed. For the first time in 38 years of flying, something like real fear crossed his eyes. "That is impossible," he said. "All 3 systems are independent. They are not connected to each other. They cannot all fail at the same time. That is." He did not finish the sentence. All 3 hydraulic pressure gauges dropped to 0. At the same time. Like someone had turned off a switch. 0. Complete hydraulic failure. Now, here is why this matters. The 737's flight controls, the parts of the airplane that make it turn left, turn right, go up, go down, all of them work because of hydraulic pressure. Hydraulics are like blood in the airplane's body. The blood pushes fluid through tubes, and that fluid pushes the wings and the tail, and the wings and the tail move, and the airplane goes where the pilot tells it to go. No hydraulics. No movement. No control. The pilot cannot steer. Cannot go up. Cannot go down. The yoke, the thing that looks like a steering wheel, the thing the pilot holds to fly the airplane, is connected to nothing. It is just a piece of metal that does not do anything. Reed grabbed the yoke and pulled. Nothing happened. He pushed. Nothing. He turned it left. He turned it right. Nothing. 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 It was like trying to steer a boat with no rudder. The airplane was going where it wanted to go, and there was nothing anyone could do to change that. And the airplane was already turning. The last control input before the hydraulics died had put the plane into a slow right bank, a tilt to the right. 15 degrees. Then 20. Then 25. And nobody could stop it. A bank of 45 degrees is the point of no return. Past that, the airplane starts to roll over. At 60 degrees, it flips upside down, and the nose points straight at the ground, and the airplane falls. "Jennifer, we need to stop this bank," Reed shouted. "We are going to roll over." Park was pulling on her yoke with both hands, with all her strength. "It is not working. Nothing is working." 30 degrees. 35. Reed went through every emergency procedure he had ever learned. Every single one. Nothing worked. Nothing could work. The airplane was broken in a way that no amount of training or experience could fix. Not with the controls dead. He picked up the radio. His voice, a voice that had been calm and steady for 38 years, was shaking. "Mayday. Mayday. Mayday. This is Southwest 2891. We have complete hydraulic failure. All 3 systems. The aircraft is uncontrollable. We are in a right bank at 37 degrees and it is getting worse. Seattle Center, the Air Traffic Control Center, came back, Southwest 2891, what is your position? We are 420 miles south of Seattle, over the Cascades. We cannot hold our altitude. We cannot stop the bank. We are going down. Reed looked at Park. She was crying. She was a brave pilot and a brave person, but right now, the math was very simple. They were going to crash. And there was nothing they could do about it. He keyed the PA system, the speaker that talks to the passengers, and he said the words that nobody ever wants to hear on an airplane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reed. Our aircraft has suffered total hydraulic failure. I cannot control the plane. We are going to crash. I want you to know. I am sorry. Brace for impact. Tell your families that you love them. He put down the PA microphone. Then he picked up the radio one more time. This is it. I cannot control the aircraft. Hydraulics are gone. We are going down. Tell my wife I love her. I am sorry. 40 degrees bank. 42. The spiral was beginning. And then the cockpit door opened. Sarah Mitchell had been sitting in seat 14C with her eyes closed, thinking about Emily's wedding. She was thinking about what she would say when she saw her daughter for the first time in 15 years. She was thinking about whether Emily would hug her or just stand there awkwardly. She was thinking about what to wear. And then Captain Reed's voice came through the speakers. Total hydraulic failure, cannot control the plane, we are going to crash. Sarah's eyes opened. Not slowly. Not gently. They snapped open, the way they used to snap open 32 years ago when an alarm went off in a cockpit and there were 3 seconds to figure out what was wrong and fix it. Hydraulic failure. Uncontrollable aircraft. Bank angle increasing. She had lived this exact situation. Not once. Not 10 times. 147 times. In test planes. In experimental fighters. In aircraft that were supposed to be impossible to fly. And she had survived all 147. Something moved inside Sarah Mitchell's chest. Something that had been sleeping for 32 years. Something that the Air Force had tried to kill, that the lies had tried to bury, that 32 years of silence and hard labor and loneliness had tried to smother. It was not panic. It was not fear. It was Phoenix. Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. Around her, passengers were screaming. Some were crying. Some were praying. A baby was wailing. The plane was tilting more and more to the right, and people could feel it, the sickening pull of gravity shifting, the feeling that the floor was slowly becoming a wall. Sarah walked toward the front of the plane. Calmly. Steadily. Like she was walking to get a glass of water. One of the flight attendants, a young woman named Linda Chen, stepped into her path. "Ma'am, you need to get back to your seat." Sarah looked at her. Her voice was quiet. But it was the kind of quiet that is not weak. It is the kind of quiet that comes from someone who has spent decades making decisions when the stakes are life and death. "I am a test pilot," Sarah said. "I know how to fly a plane with no hydraulics. Let me into that cockpit." Linda stared at her. Something in Sarah's eyes, something old and deep and unbreakable, made Linda step aside. Sarah opened the cockpit door. Captain Reed turned. He saw a woman in jeans and a black t-shirt walking into his cockpit, and his first reaction was shock and anger. "Get out," he shouted. Sarah did not get out. She slid into the jump seat, the small extra seat in the cockpit, and she started looking at the instruments. Her eyes moved fast. Reading numbers. Checking gauges. Doing math in her head. "Captain," she said. Her voice was calm. Completely calm. My name is Sarah Mitchell. 32 years ago, I was Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Air Force. My call sign was Phoenix. I was the chief test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base. I was the first woman in the Air Force to be a test pilot. I flew hydraulic failures for 18 years. I landed a fighter jet with zero hydraulics using only engine thrust. And right now, I am the only person on this airplane who knows how to keep it flying. Reed stared at her like she had just fallen from the sky. You are insane, he said. You cannot fly a commercial jet with no hydraulics. That is not how it works. Sarah's answer came back fast and cold. You are right. You cannot fly it like a commercial jet. But I am not going to fly it like a commercial jet. I am going to fly it like a broken prototype. And I have done that 147 times without killing anyone. Now move. We have less than 2 minutes before the bank angle kills everyone on this plane. Reed did not move. He was frozen. 38 years of training had taught him that the captain is in charge. That you do not let a stranger fly your airplane. That the rules are the rules. But 38 years of flying had also taught him something else. When the rules cannot save you, you do whatever it takes. Park grabbed the radio. Edwards Air Force Base, this is Southwest 2891. We have a passenger in the cockpit who is claiming to be a former test pilot. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. Call sign Phoenix. Can anyone confirm? Can anyone hear us? 800 miles to the southwest, at Edwards Air Force Base in California, an old man named Frank Morrison was sitting in a hangar drinking coffee. Frank Morrison, everyone called him Bulldog, was 76 years old. He had been in the Air Force for 40 years before he retired. Now he worked part-time as a maintenance advisor, which mostly meant he drank coffee, told stories to younger mechanics, and kept an eye on things because he knew more about these planes than anyone else alive. He was drinking his coffee and reading a newspaper when Park's voice came through the emergency radio frequency. The same frequency that every Air Force base in the country was listening to. Passenger claiming to be Sarah Mitchell, call sign Phoenix. Bulldog's coffee mug slipped out of his hand. It hit the concrete floor and shattered into pieces. Coffee went everywhere. He did not notice. He did not care. He grabbed the radio with hands that were shaking. Southwest 2891, this is Master Sergeant Morrison, Edwards Air Force Base. Say again, did you just say Phoenix? Park's voice came back, fast and desperate, affirmative. The passenger says her name is Sarah Mitchell, former Air Force test pilot, call sign Phoenix, do you know her? Bulldog's voice cracked when he spoke. He had not heard that name in 32 years. He had not thought about it well, that was not true. He had thought about it every day for 32 years. He had thought about Sarah Mitchell every single day since the day they took her away. Know her, he said. I was her crew chief for 12 years. I maintained her planes. I stood on the ground and watched her fly things that should have been impossible to fly. Phoenix was the best pilot I have ever seen in my life. The best. And they threw her away. They lied about her and they destroyed her and they erased her name. I have been angry about it for 30 years. How is she alive? How is she? And then a new voice came through the radio. A voice that Bulldog had not heard in over 3 decades. Quiet. Calm. Steady as stone. Bulldog. It is me. I am alive. I have been hiding for 32 years. And right now, I am about to fly a 737 with zero hydraulics using differential thrust. I need you to tell command to scramble fighter jets. I am going to need someone to guide me to a runway. Bulldog was crying. He was not a man who cried easily. He was a big man, tough as leather, and he had seen plenty of crashes and fires and terrible things in 40 years. But right now, tears were running down his face and he did not try to stop them. Phoenix, he said. You beautiful tough woman. You are really there. You really are. I am really here, Bulldog. Now make that call. I have a job to do. Within 4 minutes, 4 minutes is very fast for fighter jets to get ready and launch, 2 F-22 Raptors took off from Portland Air National Guard Base. The F-22 is one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world. It can fly faster than the speed of sound. It can turn on a dime. It can see for hundreds of miles. The pilot of the lead F-22 was a woman named Colonel Maria Rodriguez. Her call sign was Viper. She was 41 years old, and she had been flying fighter jets for 16 years. Viper keyed her radio as she climbed into the sky toward the Southwest flight. Southwest 2891, this is Viper lead. We are 2 F-22s out of Portland. We are coming to you. Confirm, is Sarah Phoenix Mitchell really on your airplane? Sarah's voice came back, affirmative, Viper. And I need you to believe me when I tell you I can land this airplane using only the engines. I have done it before. I will do it again. Viper was quiet for a moment. Then. Phoenix, every single woman who has ever put on a flight suit in the Air Force knows your name. You are the reason half of us are here. You broke through a door that everyone said was locked forever. If you say you can do this, then I believe you. We are coming to you now. We will guide you all the way in. Sarah did not respond right away. For just a second, one small second, something moved across her face. Something that looked like it might be tears. Then she took a breath, and the look was gone, and she said, "Thank you, Viper. Let us show them what women can do when everyone says it is impossible." What Sarah Mitchell did next is something that no pilot in commercial aviation has ever done. And what she did perfectly. She looked at Captain Reed and First Officer Park and she said, in a voice that was calm and clear and left no room for argument. I need you to trust me. What I am about to do is going to look wrong. It is going to feel wrong. Everything you learned in flight school will tell you this is crazy. But it is the only way we survive. Are you with me? Reed looked at the instruments. The bank was at 43 degrees. They had maybe 60 seconds before it became unrecoverable. Do it, he said. Sarah reached for the throttle levers, the two handles that control the engines. There are two of them, one for each engine. Normally, when you fly a plane, you move them together. Both engines at the same power. Both engines pushing the plane forward equally. Sarah did not move them together. She pushed the right engine throttle forward. All the way to 95% power. And she pulled the left engine back. Down to 40%. The effect was immediate. The right engine, the one on the right side of the plane, was now pushing much harder than the left engine. It was like pushing on one side of a door and not the other. The stronger push on the right made the plane start to turn to the left. Turn to the left meant, stop rolling to the right. The bank stopped at 43 degrees. It held. It did not get worse. For the first time since the hydraulics failed, the plane was not getting more and more tilted. Park gasped. She could not believe what she was seeing. She is controlling the roll with the engines, Park said, almost whispering. Sarah nodded. Her hands were moving constantly, tiny adjustments to the throttles, back and forth, every few seconds. It was like playing a very complicated instrument. Too much power on one side and the plane would turn too fast. Too little and it would start rolling right again. This is called asymmetric thrust, Sarah said, not looking away from the instruments. When you push one engine harder than the other, it creates a force called yaw. Yaw means turning. And when you turn an airplane, it also rolls. So if you control the yaw, you control the roll. I have been doing this for 18 years in fighter jets. A 737 is just heavier. The physics is the same. Slowly, so slowly that it took minutes. Sarah brought the bank down. 40 degrees. 35. 30. 20 degrees. She held it there. This is as good as we are going to get, she said. The airplane will not fly level. Not without hydraulics. We are going to land at a 20-degree bank. That is steep. That is dangerous. But it is survivable, if we do it right. Reed let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Where do we land? He asked. Seattle is 400 miles away. We will never make it with this much drag from the bank. Sarah looked at the navigation screen. She studied it for a moment. Portland International. 180 miles to the northwest. We can make it. Barely. Viper's voice came through the radio. Phoenix, we are visual. We can see you. Confirming 20-degree right bank. You are holding it steady. That is amazing. You are flying a commercial airliner like it is a fighter jet. Viper, I need you to be my eyes, Sarah said. I have no flight controls. I am navigating by engine thrust alone. I cannot make fine corrections. You can see things I cannot. Guide me to Portland. Copy that, Phoenix. We are with you. We are not going anywhere. For the next 47 minutes, Sarah Mitchell flew Southwest Flight 2891. 47 minutes of constant, non-stop work. Her hands never stopped moving. The throttle adjustments came every 3 or 4 seconds, a tiny push here, a small pull there. She was reading the sound of the engines. She was feeling the vibrations through the seat. She was watching the numbers on the instruments and doing calculations in her head faster than most people can do math on a calculator. The plane was descending, losing altitude, because the 20-degree bank was creating drag, and drag slows you down, and when you slow down, you drop. They were losing 800 feet every minute. It was not fast enough to crash right away, but it was fast enough to mean they had to land soon. Very soon. But they were flying. Against everything that the laws of normal aviation said should be possible, the plane was flying. Sarah Mitchell was keeping it in the air, one throttle adjustment at a time. Phoenix was doing what Phoenix had always done. Rising from certain death. At 8,000 feet, Portland came into view. Sarah keyed the radio. Portland Tower, this is Southwest 2891. I have no hydraulics. No flight controls. I am flying on engine thrust alone. I need runway 10 left, the longest runway you have, and I need it cleared. Nothing else on that runway. This landing is going to be very rough. The tower controller, a man who had been doing this job for 20 years and had never heard anything like what was happening today, came back calm and professional. Southwest 2891, runway 10 left is clear. 11,000 feet of runway. All emergency equipment is standing by. Ambulances. Fire trucks. Everything. And ma'am, we have been listening to the radio traffic. We know who you are. Phoenix. Bring them home. Sarah did not answer that. She was too busy flying. At 3,000 feet, she told Reed and Park what was going to happen. Listen to me carefully. We are going to land this airplane in a 20-degree bank. That means when we touch the runway, the right side of the plane will hit first. Hard. The impact is going to be violent. The landing gear on the right might break. The plane might bounce. It might slide sideways. But if we are lucky, we will stop. Reed swallowed hard. If we are lucky. Sarah turned and looked at him. And for the first time, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who has been in this exact place, the edge of death, the last seconds of a fight, more times than she could count. And every single time, she had come out the other side. Captain, I am a woman who was told for 18 years that she could not fly experimental aircraft because women are too emotional and cannot handle the stress. I landed broken fighter jets 147 times while men watched and waited for me to crash. This is just one more time I get to prove them wrong. Trust me. Reed nodded. He trusted her. At 1,000 feet, Viper transmitted one more time. Her voice had something in it, something that was not quite professional, something warmer and bigger than the usual calm of a fighter pilot. Phoenix, you are lined up perfectly. Your airspeed is good. Your descent rate is high, but you can handle it. Every female pilot in the Air Force is watching this right now. Bring her home. Show them what we can do. At 500 feet, Sarah pulled both engines back to idle. She killed all the thrust. The engines went quiet. The plane dropped toward the runway. Still tilted. Still banked 20 degrees to the right. Falling toward the ground like a bird with a broken wing that somehow refuses to stop flying. At 100 feet, Sarah said, "Brace for impact. Everyone. This is going to hurt." At 20 feet, the right main landing gear touched the runway. Slam. The impact was brutal. The whole plane shook. The right gear strut compressed all the way down, pushing against its limit, almost breaking. Metal groaned. Passengers screamed. Then the left gear touched. Then the nose gear. The plane bounced. Once. Twice. Then it settled onto the runway, still tilted 20 degrees, and the right wing tip started scraping along the concrete. Sparks flew. Metal screamed against concrete. The sound was horrible, a long, grinding, tearing noise that went on and on and on. Sarah had no brakes. The hydraulics that run the brakes were dead. The only thing stopping the plane was friction. The drag of the air. The scraping of the wing tip. The resistance of the ground against the wheels. The 737 slid down the runway for 7,800 feet. And then it stopped. Silence. For about 3 seconds, there was complete silence in the cabin. As if everyone on the plane had forgotten how to breathe, and all at once remembered. Then the cabin erupted. Screaming. Crying. Cheering. People were hugging each other. Strangers were holding each other and sobbing. A woman in row 22 was laughing and crying at the same time. A man in row 7 was on his knees in the aisle, praying. 187 people were alive. 187 people who, 4 minutes ago, were certain they were going to die. Captain Reed turned to Sarah. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold them still. "You just landed a 737 with no flight controls, using only the engines," he said. "That should be impossible." Sarah's answer was quiet. But everyone in the cockpit heard it. "That is what they said about women flying test aircraft. That is what they said when I landed a dead fighter at Edwards 30 years ago. That is what they have always said about women doing things that men said we could not do." She paused. "And I have spent my whole life proving them wrong." The investigation started within 2 hours. NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, the people whose job it is to find out what went wrong when planes crash or nearly crash, sent investigators to Portland International Airport. They looked at the plane. They looked at the engines. They looked at every single piece of the hydraulic system, one piece at a time. What they found made them stop and look at each other. The hydraulic pumps, the parts that pushed the fluid through the system, had cracks in them. Metal fatigue cracks. The kind of cracks that happen when metal bends back and forth over thousands and thousands of hours. The cracks had been growing for a very long time. And the inspectors who were supposed to find these cracks during maintenance had missed them. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was who made the pumps. A company called Aerotech Systems. The investigators looked at the pump design. They looked at the manufacturing records. And then one of them, a quiet woman named Dr. Rachel Torres, pulled up an old file on her computer. A file from 1992. The hydraulic pumps on Southwest Flight 2891 were the exact same design as the hydraulic pumps on the Wraith prototype. The same design that Sarah Mitchell had warned about 32 years ago. The same design that the Air Force knew was defective. The same design that killed 2 people in 1992. Aerotech Systems had never fixed it. They had taken that same broken design, the design with the flaw that Sarah had tried to expose, the design that senior officers had covered up to protect a $12 billion contract, and they had been using it in commercial airplanes for 30 years. 30 years. Hundreds of planes. Tens of thousands of flights. How many of those pumps had cracks? How many planes were flying right now with the same problem? Within 72 hours, the following things happened. An emergency airworthiness directive was issued. 847 airplanes with Aerotech pumps were grounded, pulled out of the sky, brought to the ground, not allowed to fly until the pumps were replaced. The FBI arrested 6 executives from Aerotech Systems. The charges were fraud and negligent homicide. They had known the pumps were defective. They had known for years. And they had kept selling them. The Air Force reopened Sarah Mitchell's 1992 case. They declassified the test reports from the Wraith, the reports that proved the hydraulic system was broken before Sarah ever flew it. The reports that proved the crash was not her fault. The reports that proved the Air Force had lied. And when people read those reports, the truth was very, very clear. Sarah Mitchell did not cause that crash. She was made into a scapegoat, a person who is blamed for something they did not do, so that the people who really did it can get away with it. And they had used her gender as a weapon to make the lie more believable. They had said she was emotional. Unstable. That women could not handle the pressure. And the world had believed them, because it was easier to believe a story about a woman failing than to believe a story about powerful men covering up a mistake. 2 weeks later, Sarah Mitchell sat at a long table in front of hundreds of cameras and reporters. Next to her sat Captain Thomas Reed, First Officer Jennifer Park, and Air Force General Marcus Webb, one of the most senior generals in the Air Force. The room was packed. Every major news network in the country had a camera there. Every newspaper had a reporter there. The story of Southwest Flight 2891, the story of the woman in seat 14C who saved 187 lives, had become the biggest news story in the world. A reporter stood up. "Colonel Mitchell, you saved 187 people using a flying technique that the Air Force called reckless 32 years ago. You did it as a woman, in an industry that has doubted women since it began. How does that feel?" Sarah looked at the cameras. She looked at the faces of the reporters. She looked at the American flag hanging behind the table. "I did not save anyone," she said. "I just did what I was trained to do. What I did for 18 years before they took it away from me." Another reporter, "The Air Force has announced that they are going to reinstate you, give you your rank back, give you your medals back, put your name back in the Hall of Fame. Will you accept?" Sarah paused. The room went very quiet. "No," she said. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. "I will not accept reinstatement. Because I do not need the Air Force to tell me who I am. I am Phoenix. I was Phoenix 32 years ago, when they said women could not fly test aircraft. I am Phoenix today, after proving them wrong 147 times, and then one more time on a commercial airplane in front of the whole world. They can erase my name from records. They can call me emotional and unfit. They can take my medals and my rank and my reputation. But they cannot erase what I know how to do. They cannot erase who I am." She leaned forward, toward the microphone. "I will accept one thing. An apology. Not just to me. To every woman they have doubted. To every female pilot who was told she could not handle it. To every woman who broke through barriers while men sat and watched and waited for her to fail. General Webb stood up from his chair. He walked around the table until he was standing directly in front of Sarah. He stood at attention, the way soldiers stand when they are about to say something very important. "Colonel Mitchell," he said. His voice was steady, but there was something in it, something that might have been shame. "On behalf of the United States Air Force, I apologize." The cameras captured every word. "You were right. We were wrong. We used your gender against you. We blamed you for a crash you did not cause. We let fear and politics destroy your career. We let a lie stand for 32 years because the truth was too uncomfortable for powerful people." He paused. "Your dishonorable discharge is expunged. That means it is erased from the record, as if it never happened. Your rank is restored. Your commendations are reinstated. And your name will be placed first, in the Test Pilot Hall of Fame. Not at the end. At the beginning. Because you were the first. You broke every barrier they put in front of you, and you did it better than anyone who came after." He saluted her. "Welcome home, Phoenix." Sarah stood. She returned the salute. Her hand was steady. Her back was straight. Her eyes were bright. Then she turned and walked out of the room. She walked out with her head high. 3 days later. Seattle, Washington. A small white church on a quiet street. Flowers on the steps. People in nice clothes walking in and out. A normal Saturday wedding, the kind that happens all over the country every weekend. Sarah Mitchell stood on the sidewalk outside the church. She was wearing a simple dark blue dress. It was the nicest thing she owned. She had bought it 2 days before, at a store downtown, with money she did not really have. She had been standing there for 10 minutes. She almost turned around. She almost walked back to the airport, bought a ticket to somewhere else, and disappeared again. 32 years of disappearing had taught her how to do that very well. But she did not disappear. The church door opened. Emily walked out. Emily was 34 years old. She had her mother's eyes, the same steady, searching look. She was wearing a simple white dress. Her wedding was in an hour. She had seen her mother on the news. She had watched the press conference. She had seen the Air Force apologize. She had seen the whole world learn what Sarah Mitchell had done, not just on Friday, on that airplane, but 32 years ago, and the 32 years after that. Emily saw Sarah standing on the sidewalk. And she stopped walking. For a moment, the two of them just looked at each other. Mother and daughter. 15 years of silence between them. 15 years of pain and misunderstanding and lies that other people told and that had torn their family apart. Then Emily ran. She ran down the steps of the church and across the sidewalk, and she grabbed her mother and she hugged her. Hard. The way you hug someone when you are afraid that if you let go, they will disappear. "Mom," Emily said, her voice breaking. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry I did not believe you. I was 19. I was scared. I believed what they said because it was easier than believing that the people in charge had lied. And I let you go. I let you disappear. And I am sorry." Sarah held her daughter. She held her tight. And for the first time since 1992, for the first time in 32 years, Sarah Mitchell cried. Not sad tears. Not the tears of someone who is giving up. The tears of someone who has come home. "It is okay, Sarah said. It is okay. I am here. I am glad I came. I am so glad I came." Emily pulled back and looked at her mother's face. Then she smiled. It was the kind of smile that makes everything feel like it might be okay after all. "Mom, will you walk me down the aisle?" Sarah blinked. She opened her mouth. Then she closed it. Then she opened it again. "I would be honored," she said. They walked into the church together. Mother and daughter. Arm in arm. As they walked, Emily leaned close and whispered, "Do you know what people are calling you? The forgotten woman. The woman who was erased and who saved everyone anyway." Sarah smiled through her tears. "I was never forgotten, Em. I was just waiting. Waiting for the moment I was needed again." She squeezed her daughter's arm. Phoenix does not stay buried. She rises when the fire calls. She always has. She always will. 6 months later, the Mitchell Protocol, the technique of using differential engine thrust to fly an airplane with total hydraulic failure, became mandatory training for every commercial pilot in the world. Every pilot. Every airline. Every country. They named it after her. The Aerotech Systems investigation led to the biggest aviation safety overhaul in American history. New inspections. New requirements. New laws. They made sure that what happened to Southwest Flight 2891, and what almost happened to dozens of other planes over 30 years, could never happen again. Captain Thomas Reed retired 3 months later, on schedule. His last flight was uneventful. He spent his retirement teaching a class at a community college about the day Phoenix saved his life. First Officer Jennifer Park went on to become one of the most respected aviation safety officers in the country. She works to make sure that the lessons of that day are never forgotten. Colonel Maria "Viper" Rodriguez continued to fly F-22s for the Air Force. She spoke at events all over the country about Sarah Mitchell. About what Phoenix meant to women in aviation. About what it means when someone tells you that you cannot do something, and you do it anyway. Master Sergeant Frank "Bulldog" Morrison retired for real this time. But he kept a picture of Phoenix on his wall at home. The picture from her test pilot days, young, laughing, standing next to an experimental fighter jet that most people could not even pronounce the name of. He looked at it every day. And Sarah Mitchell? She did not rejoin the Air Force. She did not become famous, not the way some people thought she should. She did not write a book. She did not go on talk shows. She did not do any of the things that the world expected her to do. Instead, she moved to Seattle. A small apartment, not too far from Emily's house. She got a job, a real job, with a real paycheck and health insurance and all the things she had not had in 32 years. She worked at a flight school, teaching young people how to fly. Not test pilots. Not Air Force pilots. Regular people. People who had always dreamed of flying but had never been sure they could do it. Women. Men. Kids. Old people. People who were scared. People who doubted themselves. Sarah taught them all. And if any of them ever said, "I don't think I can do this," Sarah would smile and say the same thing she had said every time someone told her that, for her entire life. "Let me show you what happens when you try."